I'm Becky Gannon, and I'm mad about miniatures. Join me in the glam and sometimes crazy world of New York modern miniaturist Philip Naveen. Growing up in Ohio, he dreamed of life in a big city, and now he's there. We'll talk about his high-end corporate clients, what it's like to build a mini restaurant set for trained rats, and being a finalist on the TV show Best in Miniature. Philip's Lux Minis can be found on Instagram at Philip Naveen. Let's go talk to Philip. Hello, Philip. It's so nice to talk to you.
Hi, Becky. Nice to talk to you as well.
I'm so glad you're on the show. I've been an admirer of yours for a long time. And then we did actually meet in Vegas last year at the show.
And had quite the bonding experience.
We did. We bonded over our, I would say, love of lattes, but more like our desperate need of caffeine.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know, one of the things I love about your miniatures is they just ooze luxury. And I know you've actually worked for a lot of luxury brands. Can you tell us some of them?
Oh, yes. And I think it's because I'm mainly in New York and everyone's headquartered here. But yes, so many luxury brands. Hermes, Bloomingdale's, Coach, Prada, Miu Miu. And then big name brands like Lenovo. I've got a big one coming up this fall. I'm working with doing some big displays in their store, Fifth Avenue, for winter. So I'm super excited about that.
I'm sure being in New York helps, but I also think it's because your style is that sort of clean, crisp, modern luxury. New York penthouse, Gossip Girl, Upper East Side. I don't know. Would you agree that that's kind of what your style is?
Yes, I would agree completely. That's exactly what my taste is.
So tell us about one or two of the projects you've had. I know you did one with Spotify.
Yeah, this January, actually. Well, we started talking about it December of 2022. And then, the holidays and New Year gets in the way and stuff. So they came to me. They needed some ads for Instagram and they wanted to shoot some video stuff. So they had this new feature on Spotify called Time Capsule in a Bottle, where you can make a playlist and then I guess it'll come back in a year or two and be like, hey, remember this feature? That's how it was explained to me anyways. And so their concept was they wanted a bunch of different locations. One was a city, one was like the Miami shoreline, one was in space, the other one was in an arcade. And then their capsules were different little figurines of sort, and we would hide them in each set. Like in the arcade, the one was in one of those claw machines and we had to play to get it. And then the other one was buried underneath the park in the cityscape I made. And then in the Miami one, there was a bottle just kind of floating along on the shoreline. So it was super fun.
So I bet that's the first time you've ever done space or an arcade.
Yeah, it was. When I was younger, I used to be way apprehensive about if I'd get a project brief and it was something totally out of my comfort zone. I'd be like, oh my God, the stress I used to cause myself. But now when I get some weird requests, I really lean into it because I have so much fun making something brand new that I don't have to repetitively make again.
Yes.
It's really challenging and it's kind of like sometimes I surprise myself.
Well, you have confidence now and you have tons of experience.
Thank you. Yes, that's true.
And I think you felt that way because from just meeting you and from looking at your work, I'm going to just throw out there that you might be a bit of a perfectionist.
Self-diagnosed as well. Yeah.
I battled with perfectionism, and one might say I won the battle almost too much. But it can be your best friend, but it can also be very crippling. It can prevent you from trying new things.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of times when I say to myself, like, okay, just reel it in a little bit. It's as perfect as it's going to be. And if you keep messing with it, you're just going to go crazy or ruin it. So
I have found that out the hard way, especially with miniatures, where sometimes if you just leave it alone and come back, you don't even know what you were talking about. But if you keep messing with the painting or the glue, then you have a problem.
And ultimately, you're the only one that knows that there's a flaw or something too. So
exactly. That's funny. When we were at Guild School, we were making these models and people were comparing them to, the teacher's prototype and saying, oh, they look different. I'm like, well, you're not bringing the teacher's prototype with you. No one will ever know.
Right.
Still think this is the way it's supposed to be.
No compare or contrast possible.
Exactly. So tell us about another brand that you did. I feel like you started working with brands maybe a little before some other people did, you know, that you were sort of one of the first on that.
Well, I think in the past 10 years, miniatures have really had an evolution and a resurgence. I remember when, Instagram was really getting big and there was so much more exposure of people's hobbies and what they make and do. So, I think with social media just kind of booming, it really put a spotlight on how prevalent miniatures still are and always have been. Before CGI and digitizing everything took over, all of these films that needed special effects and things, Star Wars, Titanic, they built models and they filmed the models. And so there's always been a market like that for them. And then I think kind of corporate America has been discovering them more, especially like younger brands or brands that want to have like a cool perspective or just want some like great product photography and things like that. And that's kind of where like, you call me and it's like, hey, can you make some abstract sets that we want to put some shoes in or our jewelry in? This is the vibe of our brand, and I'm more than happy to oblige.
And you have. One thing is not only did Instagram show who was already making it, but because miniatures are so visual, I think it was a chicken and the egg kind of thing. It encouraged people to put them out there, and then people loved seeing them.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course, COVID kind of, kick-started on steroids what was already happening. So another campaign I remember you did, was it something about the rats in dining?
For New York Magazine, yeah.
Yes, tell us about that.
That was a wild project. Well, first of all, this is very a New York, working and living in New York kind of thing, where I'll get a project and they'll say like, but we need it by like Thursday, or can you get this done in like over the weekend for us? And New York Magazine obviously is editorial and they print every week a new issue. I mean, it might be bi-weekly. Anyways, still, that's a lot. That's a short amount of time to really compile like something. So luckily with me, I work extremely quickly because I just sink my teeth into it. And I'm like, as soon as I get up, I'm working, and until I go to bed, I'm finishing. So anyways, they gave me like 3 or 4 days. The concept of the editorial was something about during COVID, all of the restaurants, people were afraid to eat inside because you were so close to one another. So in the cities, they took over parking spots and built like these dining sheds. I'm sure you've seen them.
Oh, yes.
And of course, they range from glamorous to a shed. That's what the thing is about, how these restaurants aren't going to give back the space because they're doubling their seating and whatever. And so they said, look, we've got this idea. We need a miniature dining sheds, and we want to do something with live animals and with rats. And I'm like, oh, okay. They did promise me that they were going to be there. They literally weren't going to find rats off the street. They found this girl who has pet rats, and they are like the creme de la creme hybrid genetic, rats. And like, I have to say, in the rats' defense, their fur was so soft and chinchilla-like. It was kind of mind-blowing.
Oh, there can be some very fancy trained rats.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know they didn't just pull one off out of the gutter to put in your beautiful miniatures.
That would have been an issue for me. And so that was really challenging because I'm like, they want the set. Fine. I know that wasn't going to be a problem. But different than it's a live little creature. And I'm like, oh my God, they gave me the rat girl. I forget her name. They gave me her email, and I'm like, can I get some measurements of these rats? Like, what am I working with here?
Oh, I would want to know too. And I bet that can really vary on how big they are.
Yeah, especially if you live in New York and you see the garbage cans ones, they're like small cats. So anyways, so these rats were pretty much perfect for 1/6 scale, play scale, Barbie scale.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's good, because that's one of the major scales that I work in and sell in. So I got the measurements and I, started building and, mocking it up and It only took me, I think, like 2 days to do the initial set. And then so when I brought it in and, I met my new furry actors for the day, I was really proud because I'm like, wow, nailed that scale. They fit perfectly in there and they look perfect in the chairs and stuff.
Did you have to make it a little sturdier? Because usually when you're doing commercial work, you're just putting a little diamond ring in it or just photographing it, but the rats are all moving around.
Yeah, I definitely made the shed pretty indestructible. And then the chairs is what I was concerned about. So when I was printing them, I printed them solid because normally with 3D prints on consumer printers at home, it's a hollow shell and there's like supports inside, but you can also change the settings where I'm like, you know what? I know they're only like a pound or two, but the leg could snap off or something. The rats are a pound or two, but I didn't want a leg to snap off on the chair from them rustling around. So I printed the chairs super solid. So I think they could have survived anything. And it worked out pretty well. The set survived, nothing broke, and we got it to work.
But you really thought ahead. I mean, making it solid was probably a great idea. And I love the idea that when you did work with rats, you only worked with the creme de la creme of rats.
How fitting, right?
Exactly. I love how you stay on brand, Philip.
Always try.
Yeah, I love that. So when you mentioned 3D printing, you've been 3D printing for years, right? Like 8 years?
Yeah, 8 or 9, a long time.
So that's before, I don't think I barely had heard of it by that time.
Yeah, so 3D printing, I'll give you a little history real quick. It's been around since the 70s, stereolithography it's called. And it's like, it was a technology available to like the aerospace industry and stuff like that. And then in the past 10 to 15 years, it was available to consumers, but the type of machine you had to buy was huge and clunky and cost thousands of dollars. And I remember the first time, the brand MakerBot? They make 3D printers.
Yes.
And they used to have a store in Soho, and I stumbled into it about 7-8 years ago, and my mind was blown. And then I really didn't think much about it. It didn't click for me how well, because I was just getting into miniatures too, how valuable that technology could be. And so a long time ago, I remember when I was reading these miniature blogs and stuff, this woman mentioned Shapeways, which is a company. They have a factory here in New York and one in Europe, where you can find a file of any piece of furniture or anything, and you can upload it to their website and get it printed. And, at that point, I was just kind of starting, and I was, cutting things out of rigid plastics and trying to make everything by hand. And, you can do it, but with modern furniture, everything has to be so precise and clean that it was really quite a challenge. So when I discovered this website and like what I could do, I immediately spent a week teaching myself the basics of rendering and how to manipulate these files. That really started to make this bloom for me. I unlocked the challenge of oh wow, I remember being I can make anything now.
Such a good point about modern furniture. I think the process of making the vintage furniture and modern is really quite different and has pretty different challenges. And one of them is that fact that you want it to look new, you want it to look flawless.
I definitely agree. When I'm making something distressed, or someone asks something specific and it's got to be weathered or aged, you can hide any flaws. The dents work for you. And I'm not saying it's not time consuming, but when you're making something ultra modern, or you're making a room box and filled with stuff, it really has to be perfect. And those 90-degree angles don't lie. That all has to be so precise.
Yeah, so tell us how you ended up on the show. Best in Miniatures, Season 1.
Yeah, over the past couple of years, I've had a few close run-ins with almost being on a show, or being on this show or this crafting show. They fizzled out. Nothing really happened. And then this one, it had been about a year. The girl contacted me on Instagram and said, hey, would you be interested in this? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? I used to have a rule that I really don't like being in front of camera, because as a perfectionist, I don't like not being able to have the editing control over my images or my face and, that kind of a thing. So, but I was to further my career, I really do need to work on this. And so I'm okay, I'll do this show. So they got back to me and said, hey, we picked you. You're one of the finalists. And it was probably about 8 months in between the initial interaction. It was at a perfect time in my life where I could take away for a couple of months and go film in Canada. The rest is history.
Well, part of the reason you had time to go is it was COVID and you didn't have any other place to go. Am I right?
Yeah, that. And I was also kind of changing over my online shops too.
Okay.
So I was you know what? Perfect time.
That's great. I think people who haven't been involved at all in television or don't know anyone don't realize how much time it really takes and how much hurry up and waiting there is. Would you agree?
Yeah, that was, yeah, it was definitely a culture shock for me too. I'd never done doing anything in television, and in reality television at that. Yeah, it was a lot of hurry up and waiting, a lot of like, hey, you got to be downstairs at 7 a.m. We'll pick you up. The vans are here. And then we won't need you till noon. So enjoy waiting. Overall, it was a interesting experience.
So did you have some wardrobe restrictions too? Did you have to wear one thing all week, or how did that work?
Yeah, that's exactly how it worked. We had to submit photos of our wardrobe and stuff. The stylist was really great on the show. She kind of took one look at me and was like, I don't need to worry about you. And I'm like, not one bit.
Well, you always wear black.
I'm super simple. So there's not much to go off the rails there. But, we would shoot an episode every 4 days. So you were in kind of the same clothes for 2 or 3 days. Wash them or not wash them, depending on how tired you are from that day, and go from there.
So one of the questions I've always had, do they stop you in the moment when you're creating and ask you to do those little interviews? Are those after the fact and they just ask you to put them in present tense?
It's a little bit of both. And also, working on a tight timeline and then having people trying to get, content out of you is its own challenge, which was a whole nother thing that I didn't even anticipate. But yeah, we'd be working, and then, the cameras, depending on how many contestants there were, but like 5 to 10 camera guys just zooming around at all times. And then, out of the corner of your eye, you'd see one coming for you, and you'd see the production assistant behind with her notepad, like ready to ask you questions. And she's behind the camera guy. So that's how they get that angle of it looks like you're just talking to the camera naturally, but there's someone behind the camera actually just kind of being like, oh, and what about this? And give us more. What are you doing? Extracting detail from us.
Well, that's tough because when I'm in my mini zone, I mean, my husband has claimed that he's asked me questions or talked to me and I don't remember. So you have to get out of that zone, which you're in a tight time zone, and be like, oh, I have to be charming and interesting for a minute. And now will you go away?
Yes. And me, I definitely blurted out things that I wish I did not blurt out. But when your brain's just kind of scrambled in that moment.
Oh, I can imagine. Oh, I could see you were lovable.
Why, thank you.
So you've made a couple different shopping bags for products, haven't you? Little custom shopping bags?
Oh my gosh. I've probably made over, it's got to be somewhere between like 30 and 50,000 of those over the years.
What? That's insane.
Yeah, and I used to give them away in orders and stuff, so I'd always have to keep an inventory of a couple hundred of them. I've made so many little paper shopping bags, Becky, so many. See them in my dreams.
We should do a little thing sometime where we time you.
I can do about, let's see, I can do about 10 in 20 minutes.
That's really quick. You weren't kidding when you said you were fast.
Well, they're repetitive, too. It's kind of like you get into an assembly line with those.
Right. But I do think that's one thing that really helped you on Best in Miniatures. You were very fast. You always knew where all your things were. And I could also tell you had really thought about the concept of your house.
Yeah. I made a blueprint. I made a floor plan for each room. I made a digital model. I had schematics ready to go. And then for each challenge, I would make a list and print it out and keep it on my table because it would keep me on time. I would chunk it and like, okay, you've got 2 hours to do the walls and the flooring. You've got 2 hours to do the dining room table. You've got 2 hours to do the lighting.
Well, that's so smart. And you did have time ahead of time to plan. Why not do the planning then and then you're just constructing it?
Yes, yeah, I agree. But that's just the way my brain works. I like to have my ducks in a row before I go into something.
So they have these surprise challenges. What was the hardest surprise challenge, mini challenge for you?
That's a great question. It's not stuff that you can't make. It's that you're making it in like 90 minutes and with materials you didn't choose. That's kind of always a wrench in your, operation. I would say that we had to make miniature animals.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to make a sheep. And with that, you have to do that tufted felt with those needles.
Oh, yes. That's time-consuming.
So much blood, Becky.
Oh, no.
I thought he turned out pretty cute. He kind of turned out more like the Serta sheep, the mattress brand Serta.
Yeah.
and the commercials with the little sheep. Mine kind of turned out a little bit more like of a cartoon sheep. Like,
I thought he was adorable.
yeah, not that it was sloppy, but it was just kind of like it had a very happy essence to it. It wasn't like a realistic looking sheep.
Yeah, but ask anyone who does those little felt animals that are so realistic. That takes, I mean, they're very expensive for a reason. They take forever. They had a mini challenge of miniature flowers. Well, at Guild School, I spent all week making miniature pansies.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the flowers were hard too. I had hydrangeas as well. Oh my gosh.
Oh, there was a whole class in hydrangeas. It was like a 24-hour class, I think, at Guild School. What did you have, 40 minutes?
I think something like there an hour. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Not enough time. But I guess that's the challenge. That's the fun. One thing I really loved about the show is how you all helped each other. And to me, it's just another example of how great the mini community was. I love the little video they put out where they were like, can I grab you something? And they showed you, especially you made some good friends on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's something I don't think they anticipated. I think they thought, because it was the first season, so they had never worked with like a group of miniaturists. I think, of course, like any show, they want drama and edge. So I think they were hoping, they were like, get out of here. That's my glue, you bastard.
They really don't know us very well then.
Yeah, whereas we were like, does anyone need the masking tape? I'm done with it. So they were really grappling a couple episodes in, like, wow, they're all so nice to each other. And like, we'd all just kind of be working silently and doing our thing in our little zones, just like happy little miniature elves doing our work.
You're right. It's not like cooking where you're clopping around and maybe talking and exclaiming. You're just kind of hunched over working.
Right.
It's probably not all that interesting from afar.
Right. So that was something they definitely had to figure out and lean into, because they definitely weren't going to get that edge.
One way they could have gotten edge is, they could have restricted the glue. That would have made some drama.
Yeah, that would have been cruel, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would have caused some drama. I can see the buildings toppling there.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me about little Philip and how he got into miniatures or building.
Yeah. So as a kid, I've always been very creative, and I've always loved, putting things together, taking things apart, figuring out how they work. My dad's an engineer, and my mom's a business person. So, everyone always says, oh, I'll never be like my parents. But as you get older, I'm like, oh my God, I'm exactly like my parents, because, I just love to make things and figure out how to, I'll see something and be like, oh, I have to make that. And then, part of living in America is I have to sell what I'm making to be able to get by every month.
Right.
It's been an evolution. And then, I've always loved playing with Legos and making really elaborate Lego structures. And my dad would always buy me steel and girders or erector sets or model car sets to build. So, model making was ingrained in me as a kid. It just kind of kept going. And then in high school and stuff, all my art projects were kind of geared towards that too. I was making something three-dimensional, and it's just been an evolution, and here I am today.
One thing you told me when we were talking earlier is that you would use the same color Legos in your buildings instead of mixing them all together.
Oh, yeah.
And I laughed at that because that is so sophisticated, and my son, who's an engineer and would build elaborate things, did not do that.
I remember two things I made specifically. I made a shopping street, and all the little boutiques had to be white, like Rodeo Drive or something like that.
Oh my gosh. How old were you then, Philip?
Probably 9 or 10.
That's adorable.
I don't know how this kind of retail luxury kind of started seeping in, and found a kid living in rural Ohio, first of all, but it managed to find its way. And
that was your first thing. What's the other thing you remember?
I remember we always had a pool when I grew up. And I remember making, again, it had to be all white, but I remember making big cruise ships out of Legos because I was just enamored with how cool and luxurious and, I don't know, just massive they were. And I would take them into the pool and they would sink because they're Legos, of course.
Of course.
So, I was just making Rodeo Drive and cruise ships as a 10-year-old.
And now, a word from my sponsor. Take your dollhouse or miniature project to the next level with sophisticated style from Miniatures.com. The exclusive Hannah collection features clean lines and modern designs for today's miniaturist. Choose from beds, bath vanities, and exquisite bedding to give your mini dreams an upscale makeover. And now, all U.S. orders of $35 or more ship for free at miniatures.com. Elevate your miniature world with the gorgeous Hannah collection, only at miniatures.com. I live in Ohio now, although I've actually lived all over, so I've kind of ended up here. But you grew up in Cleveland, right?
Yeah, the suburbs of Cleveland. Mm-hmm.
And how did you make it from Cleveland to New York?
Once my teenage years hit me, I was like, you know what? I don't think it's going to work out here so well for me. And plus, realistically, too, wanting to work in the arts, you need to be in a cultural spot like New York or LA or.
Absolutely.
I kind of got my mindset on being a New Yorker when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. I went to college in Chicago because my parents said that I would end up in a gutter if I went to New York when I was 17 years old. And they were exactly right, because Chicago, let's just say I had a good time in college. And then after college, when I was 23, I was like, I had saved up some money. And I was like, you know what? I was in between jobs. I'm just going to move to New York. And I think that's something you can do when you're 23. It's just, it's time to move to New York. And I've been here ever since.
There's a lot to unpack there. But one thing that hits me personally is, when you said you kind of thought maybe you would fit in better in New York. I've lived in Boston. I've lived in a lot of big cities. And I have a lot of good friends here in Toledo. I'm not going to say I don't. But when I first moved here, and even now, sometimes I'll meet someone for the first time and they'll be like, "You're not from around here, are you?" Mm-hmm. My husband and I used to laugh like every time that happened.
I've heard that too, yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's so interesting. You were just bound for it, bound for New York. I remember that you said the first thing you made with 3D printing was your favorite chair, the Barcelona.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, because the Barcelona chair by Mies van der Rohe, my favorite architect. So because again, my mind, it's a $6,000 chair, and I have them in my living room. And while after sitting in them for a half hour, your tailbone is screaming, they are just so beautiful to look at.
So beautiful.
So beautiful. But again, give it about a half hour. I was trying to make them, and I was cutting out of plastic and spray painting silver. And I'm like, this is so crude. There's got to be a better way. And then, I discovered 3D printing. And I remember when I got the prints back, I kind of just had, like I said earlier, that eureka moment of like, oh, wow, I can literally make anything perfect now.
Wow. Well, and I can't really imagine the Barcelona chair without that smooth, sleek, metal.
Exactly.
It just wouldn't be it. Now, one thing I find interesting about, sometimes I'll be in dollhouse shops or other places, and I'll find sort of that retro modern, the Eames chair or sort of a lounge. And sometimes they're all done in plastic. I think that was kind of way back when. Like, the leather is done in plastic. But you actually put actual leather on your Barcelona chair.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Like, the mass-produced ones are always plastic cushions and stuff like that. Yeah, well, it doesn't look as real. I mean, you could put flocking on it to kind of hide it, but I try to stay as close to the materials as possible, the real ones. Because it looks more real, and you've got a better product, I think.
So do you find it hard to do that leather tufting? Did you teach yourself to do that?
My aunt taught me to sew when I was like in my teenage years. I always had a sewing machine since then. So I'm actually quite a whiz with stuff like that. I used to make a lot of my own clothes too when I had more time.
Really? That's so interesting. You're a Renaissance man, a man of many talents.
So I love tufting little miniature cushions. It's a lot of fun. But again, you got to be really perfect with them, because if they're out of alignment, you'll see it.
Oh, yes, you will. Mm-hmm. But I think that's one thing that you said about the miniatures is there's so many different things you can do. And that's what keeps me interested, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's what I love about miniatures too. And, sometimes I'll meet people or I'll tell them what I do, or, they'll be really kind of like, oh, that's cute. And I'm always like, you don't understand. There's wiring, lighting, electrical, paints, the glues, the woods, the saws, the mitering, the foam core, this board, that board. You need this ruler. You need that ruler. It's an art form where you really need to know a lot about every other kind of art form to put it all together. It's really quite an elaborate medium. And I think it's super important. It's, yes, it can be cutesy or passe, but like, if you're a serious collector or an artist like me who, I take it very seriously. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I'm really proud of that.
I'm so glad you said that because I think that's totally true. It's like the art form that incorporates all the other art forms.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's true that not all miniatures are art, you know what? Not all painting is art. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, all you have to do is go into, a warehouse furniture store to see that. It doesn't, but that doesn't denigrate the paintings that are art. You can't say Picasso's not art just because Sofa Mart has a bunch of prints. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree, yes.
In my mind, there's no doubt that you're an artist, Philip.
Oh, I thank you. And you as well, too.
Well, I'm working on it.
You're doing great.
I'm more of a craftsman wannabe, but thank you.
You turned into more of a content You're more, what are they called? An influencer.
Oh, a minfluencer. Yes, I can't say that without cracking up. Yes, I mean, I've always been a connector of people, and I do love that part. I love interviewing people like you. I love getting people to events. I mean, I think that's one thing I love about this. I also love crafts and arts. And so to me, this has a little bit of all of that. And if I look back over the past 3 years, there have been times where I made a lot of stuff. And then there were times where I was doing more marketing jobs where I became more of a collector. But what I love is I could still do this in some capacity.
Yes. I think you've got a good balance.
Lately, coming right from Guild School, I'm on a real making trend. Mm-hmm. And as hard as it was to do those miniature flowers, I kind of enjoyed doing them, and I found a mini club, and we're making miniature flowers too.
Oh, cool.
The woman who did the craft was nice enough she had all these little punches, and she punched out all the flower petals for us ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, before I went and had to try to hand cut them,
mm-hmm.
I would not have been as appreciative of all these pre-made petals. I mean, I would have been appreciative, but when I saw them after trying to cut them by hand, I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for doing that.
Yes, the arthritis is real, that's for sure.
Yes, you have so much more appreciation after trying to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to wonder why some of the miniature flowers are so expensive, and now I'm like, oh, they're totally underpriced,
Right, well, it takes someone a day to put a bouquet or more together.
Probably that's working pretty fast,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, each pansy we made had 7 leaves and 5 petals, and they had to be cut and colored on both sides, shaped, glued, and then you had to paint the little pansy face. I mean, that's a lot.
That is a lot, yeah. And that's why I like to do fake miniature grass for all my greenery.
Yes, and so now you don't actually have a dollhouse, do you, Philip? Or a miniature house?
I don't, because I live in New York and space is such a premium. I wish I could. I do have like small models kind of laying all around, and my coffee table has a big gallery that I made, and I collect a certain brand of figurines that they all live in there. And then in my my office, there's models all over and the shelves and things like that for inventory. I wish I had the room for a full structure.
And in fact, you have a miniature version of the house you built for Best in Miniatures, right?
I do. Yeah, I made a little model of what I made on the show for my desk because I really do love that house design.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Do you have like little sets? Occasionally I see stuff that looks like it's in little sets.
Yeah, like what I'll do, and this is of your advice actually, when we spoke a couple months ago. Yeah, I'll just make like back walls and like a floor and kind of throw something together real quick, which I wish I had time to make more elaborate things, but I just don't have anywhere to store them. That's the problem. I've been so busy this summer, fortunately, that like, even though like I don't get to like do that for my personal stuff, but like there's always someone that's like, I need this and it needs to be fully decorated. And I'm like, done, perfect. Because that's something that I get to just completely do from point A to B. And I love doing that.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I think someone should invent is, you know how a miniature version of sort of like a photographer's background set. Like I've seen them where, you can put in different colors, backgrounds, where you have like a little thing and you can slip in like 4 different kinds of, wood or 5 different kinds of brick or background. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. That's a good idea.
Because I love having the house, but sometimes you just want something different or you just.
Right. I might steal that from you. Because I print miniature brick walls. I can obviously do windows. I might steal that from you, Becky. I'll give you a commission, okay?
I think people would buy that.
I agree with you. I think we're on to something.
I think we are.
Mhm.
Maybe we won't publish this part.
This is where you edit.
So, Philip, what are some of your color combinations that you love? I feel like when I see your work, you've got a lot of black and white, but lately I see you adding color.
Yeah, I've always been in like with my own personal aesthetic, like pretty much just monochromatic, black and white. As I've kind of evolved too, like I really do love doing big pops of color and things like that. And I try to sneak woods in and things like that too, where I can. But, with modern, I try to do a lot of cement or like polished concrete too. You can use warm elements and woods and things, but I try to keep it not cold or sterile in like a bad way, but just in a clean way.
Right. Well, I love black and white too, but I do feel like the pops of color, in a way, help anchor your eye and really notice the clean lines and the details of the modern, where otherwise you can your eye can just sweep over it. I feel like the pops of color make you stop and go across the room.
Right, exactly. I agree. And then when you're photographing something in daytime, it reads so differently than at nighttime because with, miniatures at night, you can play up the lighting and the shadows and the drama, and it's just so cool.
You mentioned that you have a project. You can't tell us the name, but it's going to be in a flagship store in New York, right? Like 8 different pieces or a number of little sets.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this fall. Like I booked on a project for, a luxury brand that's been around forever. Can't reveal the name until the project's done yet, but they're redoing their Fifth Avenue flagship store. And inside of it, there's going to be this, it's a couple of floors. So there'll be this beautiful glass circular staircase. And then around it, they want a bunch of miniature displays with a theme and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm really excited to sink my teeth into that.
When will that be in the store and available for us to gawk at?
I think you'll be able to see it like early November.
Okay. So when it's out, you'll have to come back on my live and we can dish about that.
Yes, and I'll photograph it to death, of course.
That'll be so fun. I just love when miniatures get all the work from the brands, and it's just so creative what you can do with it, I mean, even looking at just your projects, all of them are sort of different.
Yeah, it's also very validating too, because it really just lends credibility to the art form. That it is viable, it can be commercial, it can still be cool, it can be for a mass audience appeal. And I like whenever I have a corporate project, I say, look, I can be as creative as you want, or I can do exactly what you tell me. You do you. I'll just need the check. That's,
That probably varies greatly, right? On what they want?
Oh my gosh, depending on the team I'm working with, it can. Sometimes they want exactly as they designed it. And sometimes they go, you know what? I love what you're doing. Just do that. We trust you. I always enjoy a project like that. I always enjoy it either way it goes because, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Sometimes it's nice to not have to be the bulk of the creative and just kind of, execute the orders. Yeah. And then sometimes it is nice to take the creative reins or to be trusted with them.
I can totally see that. So you mentioned in Ohio you had these like high-end, tastes as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I think kind of like, as kids, we're kind of on a path, like to the person that we're going to ultimately become, no matter how much you fight it or go against it. I would always just be drawn to like really cool, unique, modern, high-end objects and things. And then definitely a brand whore from early on, was just obsessed with brands and iconography. And, my BFA is in graphic design. So there's that part of me. But, there's just I don't know. I think I just my brain is just wired to like kind of gravitate towards really well thought out designed items, whether it be furniture or clothing or homes. Like that's just always kind of been my through line with how I think and see things. And I would always just find that, even in living in rural Ohio, of course, as I got older, there was television and the internet and more influences that I could grasp. Yeah, and it's just something that's never left me.
I definitely think that some of my love of Scandinavian design and kind of mid-century modern, I didn't realize it at the time, but I look back on some of my mom's furniture and some of the pieces, and you can kind of trace where some of that evolved.
And it's surprising how like early on that kind of develops too.
Yes, I can't agree more. Well, Philip, it's been so fun talking to you. I've been so looking forward to this. I just love what you do, and I think you bring such a fun flair to everything you do. And I just love how sleek everything is.
Well, you're too kind, and thank you so much. I love talking with you, and this was a lot of fun. And I love seeing what you make as well. I can't wait to jump on Instagram every day and see what you've been up to and what you're putting together too.
Well, sometimes I make things, sometimes I put things together. Sometimes lately I've been so busy I've just been showing people how I organize my minis.
When I see collectors and they show kind of the behind the scenes and the bins and bins of little dividers and, well, this is Christmas and this is Halloween and this is this decoration. It's like, oh my gosh, I would kill for the room these people have.
It is funny to me how interested people are in how you organize stuff, like the little bins.
Right.
Yes, I am. One nice thing about living in Ohio is my two boys that have left the nest had huge rooms, and they're both just sitting there. So whenever people say, "Oh, you're running out of room," I'm like, unfortunately for my husband, no, I am not.
Good.
Thank you so much, and we'll keep checking to your Instagram to see more of your fun projects that are going to be coming out this fall.
Yes, please do.
Well, have a great day, Philip. Create something beautiful. I know you will. And goodbye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed talking to Philip as much as I did. My next episode comes out Tuesday, October 10th, and features miniaturist and author Chelsea Anderson. Chelsea was a finalist on NBC's Making It Season 3, hosted by Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman, and her new book, 50 Makes for Modern Minis, comes out in early October. You can find her on Instagram at Chelsea Makes. Be sure to tune in Tuesday, October 10th. And to make sure you don't miss it, please consider subscribing to my podcast. Reviews are always appreciated too. Until then, remember, there are no rules in your dollhouse except for the ones you create for yourself. Bye.